Slick. So what are we covering today in terms of years? Ooh, excellent. Let's do it. Okay, so 2017 to 2020. Well, around that time frame, it was a very interesting and very challenging, traumatic time in my whole life as a whole, and music seemed to be something that was going to take a huge part in dealing with some of those challenges I was having, and which was a godsend and a savior, because it did help me. Music did save my life in that time frame, or I probably would have killed somebody or something like that, or went into heavy drinking again. It was that bad. So 2017 did not turn out to be a great year, but one of the things that also led to that bad time was I was ready to just pack it in musically, in terms of just writing songs and not really doing much with it anymore. I was really discouraged. I was at the point where I said, why bother? What's the point? But I did say to myself, there is probably a few songs that turned out pretty good in those last 15, 20 years. I thought, maybe put those online and then call it a day. Put some vocals on it finally, because I just couldn't find anybody to do that. So I said, let's just get the vocals done. I'll do them, because it seems like nobody else seems to be interested or want to do it. So I started that progress just like I did with the drums. I started to learn how to do vocals better and properly, because there is a technique to it that will not destroy your voice or your vocal cords. And I learned that. I learned that from 2017 to really 2020 and on. I'm still learning. I'm always learning about that. Vocals is like that final frontier for me. And actually, one more thing to that is playing live doing vocals is the last frontier for me, and it's coming and it's going to happen. So if you stick to it, it will happen. And if you learn it, if you properly learn it and learn it from all sources, whether it's people, videos, doesn't matter. If you learn it and you practice it and you apply it, you'll know which ones are full of shit and which ones are, and you tend to realize that as you go. So that was pretty much in a nutshell from 2017 year, where I started doing the vocals at the end of the year, and something started to click in. Something started to happen. I started to go, what if I did try it again? What if I gave it one more shot and I just decided to write some songs, see what happens? So I started to think about that, and the results was pretty amazing. So technically, I would say Planet Cool Music started in 2018, which is where I got the name and I got all that started. And 2018 was a really interesting year in knowing what I could and couldn't do. And I knew there was a lot to learn. I was using Cakewalk Pro 8 still, which was a really good tool at that time, because I was really learning it and really trying to figure it out. One of the things that I realized too was that live drums is better than programmable drums. So I was starting to learn more of how to make that a better feel. But vocally, I was really figuring it out, and it was starting to come together, but it was rough. If you listen to the stuff in 2018, it sounds like garbage. It sounds like dog crap. But I kept it in on the site, and I kept it there because I wanted people to know that you do have to start somewhere, and this is what you start with, and this is where you end up with, which is in 2023, of course. Sounds a lot better than it did in 2018, but I stuck with it, and that's the key. That's the key, Planet Rockers. You gotta stick with it. In the end of the year 2018, I got it done. I did like 15 songs at Joe's Hideaway Studios, which was actually a really good test to see if I could do this in other places, and I did. And I got it figured out. Was it the best that I could do at that time? Yes. I listen to it now and I go, crap, I'm doing that over, or I'm rewriting that song. So, but in the end, that's a good thing. And 2018 started to pan out as, yeah, I think I'm going to keep doing this. I think I'm going to go right in and dive in deep and do it, which is where 2019 goes into. So there's a few songs in that time frame from 2018 to 2020 that became really big highlights for me, and going, oh, I can do this. This sounds really good. Cage of Love, Triple W, Planet Cool. That was a great song. And just other songs that just seem to really get everything going again. There was one song called One Shot, and that turned out really well. I was really happy with that, but I had to redo it because I hated the vocals, hated the vocal melody that I did at that time. Still okay. And I did redo songs that were from the past, like Out of Me, Let It Rip, Patience of Steel. I thought I should start doing those songs over because I knew I could do something better now. So I think by 2019 December, I decided that I was going to go from Cakewalk Pro 8, an old tool, an old music program that was good, that did everything I needed it to do, and I needed to explore another avenue, and that was Audacity. Audacity became a really big tool for me. That was all purely accidental. I've always had Audacity, I just didn't know how it worked, and then I did some experimenting, which is what we do with Planet Cool Music. It's all about experimenting. If it works, then you start doing that. And I started to have a process of, the way I was songwriting and the way I was putting down the drums. I was learning as I was going, and it started to show up that it started to sound better. Especially in 2020, there are some good songs on that front too. So I was pretty proud of 2020 also, and that was one of my best years too for recording and putting together new songs. Okay, so 2020, some really good songs came out of that whole sessions. And this is another thing I started working on, was instead of making albums, because it seemed like nobody buys albums anymore, and music is like such a weird place now with streaming and all that. I thought, thinking of the old days, I don't know where I read it, but there was something about doing sessions. Sessions seemed to be something that was standard all across the board, whether it was rap or jazz or classical. You're doing the sessions. They call them the sessions. So I thought, let's do it by the year and call it the 2020 sessions. That year was a good year for recording and writing new music. And one big highlight was Fountain of Youth, which I do play live. That is a big one. I really love that song. That song grew on me, and it just took a whole life of its own. Yes, Blindsided. Blindsided was another big song that I wrote that year that really was different, and it worked. It worked really well. I was really proud of how it was not as distorted, not as heavy, but it had that character, and the subject matter was different, and it was great. I did a lyric video, which you can check out on the site, and it's a really good song. I was really proud of that. A few other good songs that came out of that year was Metal Armor, really good song. Take Back. Actually, Take Back was a funny story. There was a point in 2020 where they were saying you can't dance or sing outside because it was going to make people sick or something stupid like that. And it was like, really? It's time to take back our music and take back our whole thing. And I said, that's crap. And I wrote a song called Take Back. Turned out really good. Hole in the Sky, which was in 2019, that was a really good song too. And just generally the songs were getting stronger. There was one song that I did that was a bit of a gamble, but it worked, and that was heavily influenced by Motorhead, of course, from the Bastards album. And that was Salty Dogs. I think that was one of those songs where I was like going, yeah, I got it. That was really good. That was a really, really good song, and love it still. And the bass solo on that is really good. Try to mix it up and do things like that with doing bass solos and not letting the guitars always take over. And that was another thing. I was learning more about dynamics. So, really good year for recreating some classics that I had in the background, but also new music. The music was starting to get better. It's a Toronto company, IT company. They're called Hero Technologies. It is run by a friend of mine, Aaron, who I had met in 2009, and I've known him for a long time. And yeah, awesome guy, awesome friend, awesome in everything that you can think of in technology. He's really smart, really good. Check out herotechnology.ca. They're really good if you're looking for website hosting or just generally anything to do with IT and managing your IT needs with laptops and computers and everything else that comes with it. But where did Hero Technology help me? Oh man, from everything from the website hosting to the domain name, but also backing up. Planet Rockers, make sure you back everything up that you do. I have been since 2018 with the help of Hero Technologies, and that was probably a godsend and a savior for me, because saving everything was at a premium, and that was non-negotiable. From the past, there are things that I don't have from 1986 to, let's say, 2000, to 2000, where I don't have any of the music. I don't have any tapes left. I don't know where any of that stuff is. I have CDs from that point on in 2000 and on that I have as stuff that I did, but I don't have anything before that, and that's a shame. Would have really liked to be able to hear what I did in the early days on cassette. Yes, I did use cassette and a Tascam. Remember that? That's in episode 1 or episode 2 where I talk about that. True story. But Hero Technologies, they are a huge part of the Planet Cool Music success story in terms of the technology side of things, and just a great supporter of what I do. They don't get it. Aaron never gets what I'm doing musically, but that's okay. It's not his style. Doesn't matter. He calls it screaming. It's probably right. But check them out. They're in the link below. Check them out. They're really good. Okay, so January 10th was a Friday night. I'm at work. I go looking through stuff online. No big deal. Overheard somebody at work saying, "Who's Neil Peart?" And I'm going, "What do you mean, who's Neil Peart? If you know music, you'll know who Neil Peart is from Rush." And the guy was explaining, and I thought, okay. And I just stepped up and I said, okay, well, that's fair. If he doesn't know, he doesn't know. I mean, he's a legend. Unfortunately, he had to retire because he just couldn't cut it anymore, or he didn't feel like he could do what he thought that he could do, that he did in the past, that he could produce that, and he was done. And that's understandable. Remember, 2015 is when Rush, called it a day, and that was okay. They had nothing to prove or nothing to owe to the fans, but just sad that they were done. I was going with my wife to a place called Kelsey's, local, pub, bar, restaurant, and I was just looking through an article my wife was telling me about. It's about space, about astronauts. Really cool, actually. So I was just going, okay, and then I'm scrolling down and seeing Neil Peart's passed away, and I'm going, what? I said, a year ago, before, in 2019, there was something like that on Twitter, and Rush, the organization, and Rush said, no, this is like bogus. Don't listen to that. Neil's fine. He's just fine, and he's in retirement. It's all good. So I remember that. I remember that Twitter posting. But then I'm scrolling through, and I said, oh man, are people at it again? Like, give it a rest. he's fine. He's okay. So whatever, you know. It's like, stop speculating on something that's not happening. But as I scrolled through and I'm going something, I said, wait a minute. I said, what site am I on? Because I was just reading that other article with the astronaut and 2 women astronauts going to space apparently, Canadian too. So that's pretty cool. But I scrolled up and it was CBC, and yeah, that my face went white, and my wife's going, "What's going on? What's the matter?" I said, "Holy crap!" I said, "He passed away." I said, "Neil's dead," and she goes, "What?" So I gave her the article, and I was done. I was like, "What?" When you follow somebody that good and that good of a drummer, but also a great lyricist, great songwriter, and it's part of your soundtrack. It's part of your, you know, of your life, your teenage life, but also what you started with musically. That hits you like a ton of bricks, and you're going, okay, it's not registering, and that was not a good night, in a lot of respects, because there was a lot of other things happening that night that wasn't good, and I was not in a good place, or on that weekend. Still hurts. It's still hard to see somebody who's done so well musically and just such a decent person and great Canadian, great songwriter, great everything, and just to see that that's been taken away from him at 67, and what he died of, which was brain cancer. That's yeah, life sucks sometimes. Life's not fair, and you just never know. That was probably my seed of looking at my mortality. It's like, oh, this really sucks, and yeah, it doesn't always end well, and it doesn't always end the way you want it. So take it one day at a time. Even if it sucks, just try and see what's actually cool, which is why music carried me through that and everything else that was going on at that time, because there was a lot going on. I don't think I'd have to. Well, actually, that was in January. We didn't know that the world was going to collapse at that time, so there you go. Tough story, but he was a huge influence and still is. We missed the music, we missed the whole thing. But life moves on. You continue to create music. So 2020 was not particularly a good year for music legends and people that we really liked or I liked. And one of those was Eddie Van Halen. October 6, 2020. My daughter comes down. I'm just going to take her somewhere. And she goes, "Ever heard of somebody called Eddie Van Halen?" I'm going, yes, because I'm a guitar player and I love music and Van Halen rocks. Yeah, why? He passed away from cancer. I'm going, what? Now, I knew for a while he wasn't doing good, and he was in remission actually with cancer, but I guess on October 6th he didn't make it. And you could see like both Anthony and Sammy and the rest of the guys that was devastating. It was devastating for the fans. Unfortunately, and believe it or not, I had 2 chances to go see Van Halen, and I just didn't get to it. It just didn't happen. Timing and just circumstances just didn't allow me to see Van Halen. But and I always wanted to. That was one of the things on my checklist I wanted to see. Didn't get that chance, unfortunately. So if I'm looking out to go see somebody else who's still alive, I'm going to go check it out. That was an important life lesson. Who cares? Just make it happen, right? And go see that band or that particular individual. But as a musician and songwriter and guitar player and everything else about Van Halen, I love Van Halen. I loved them in all the stages that they were in. I'm one of those people who likes bands in different stages, whether it's the original or not the original singer or guitar player or whatever. I'm always curious to how it's going to sound. And Van Halen, Eddie was just unique. He was one of a kind. He really came up with some really good ideas for guitar riffs and ways he wrote songs. And there's so many that stand out. And just that was a tough day. Yeah. And 67. What the hell's going on with people at 67? I was born in 1967. I hope that's not a sign. But no, Eddie was brilliant. Brilliant guitar player. And influenced me in a lot of ways, both in the songwriting and just the sound and just getting, that influence in there of putting things together. Yeah.